Welcome back. Today we join a dedicated mechanic as he takes on a chassis most would consider scrap. Resurrecting a vehicle left to rot in a salvage yard requires seeing past decades of oxidation to the solid metal beneath. The first phase of any major restoration is stripping the decay down to a workable foundation. Organic matter like dry leaves holds moisture, accelerating rust deep within the floorboards. To access the structural damage, the heavy steel doors must be removed completely. He carefully taps out the seized hinge pins, a process that requires steady leverage to avoid warping the surrounding pillars. Leaving the doors attached during frame repair risks permanent misalignment later. The empty shell is the only starting point. Glass perishes in ways metal does not, often spider webbing from a single stress point over years of temperature cycling. Clearing the shattered windshield is vital for safe access to the dash. Inside, the original seat linkages remain intact. Mechanical tracks from this era used thick steel rails that often survive total exterior neglect, needing only lubrication to function again. Test-fitting interior panels early reveals warped sections of the steel framework before any final welding begins. Tolerances inside the cabin dictate how weather seals will compress against the door frame. Decades of fine dust can permanently seize delicate switchgear inside the center console. Reintegrating analog electronics requires seating them flush against the original wood trim to ensure the grounding plates connect properly. The original wiring harnesses are notoriously brittle. Decades of heat cycling turn flexible insulation into a fragile shell that cracks under pressure, inviting shorts. He traces the instrument cluster circuits by hand. Rebuilding the nervous system of an old machine is slow, deliberate work where a single loose pin can cause cascading electrical failures. The steering column is secured by deep-set anchoring bolts designed to absorb severe impact. Reaching them requires long-shanked tools to provide adequate torque within the narrow, highly confined dashboard cavity. Installing headliners demands precise tension from the center outward to prevent sagging later on. The backing material insulates the cabin against the immense radiant heat generated by a large metal roof in direct sunlight. He works the upholstery into the retaining channels along the roof rails. Once seated, the tension holds the fabric permanently taut without relying on heavy adhesives that degrade over time. It seals the environment. Stripping the B-pillar trim exposes the structural ribbing that gives the car its lateral rigidity. Every hidden cavity behind the wheel well must be inspected, as trapped moisture here creates invisible rot from the inside out. Dismantling the cooling system provides the necessary clearance to extract the heavy block. The old radiator and plastic fan blades turn brittle with age and heat exposure. Loosening the core support bolts allows the entire front assembly to shift forward, freeing up vital workspace. Disconnecting the battery grounds the system, eliminating any risk of sparking as the main harnesses are severed. Plastic fluid reservoirs are pulled to prevent them from shattering under the swinging weight of the engine during extraction. Balancing the uneven weight distribution of the cast iron block is critical. A chain hoist provides the slow, micro adjustments needed to guide the massive housing past the firewall without buckling the fragile steering linkages below. With the engine removed, bodywork begins. Grinding away surface oxidation ensures the new coatings bond directly to bare steel. The dark etching primer actively converts microscopic rust particles while sealing the fresh metal from atmospheric moisture. Polyester putty acts as a structural filler, bridging small dents and pitting. Applying it with a wide, straight edge prevents low spots that would eventually distort reflections. As the filler cures, the orbital sander feathers the hard edges. This mechanical leveling is the only way to restore the original geometric curvature of the door panel perfectly. A pneumatic spray gun atomizes the paint into a fine mist. This ensures an even, flat application that avoids heavy runs on the vertical surfaces. Building a deep gloss requires multiple thin layers rather than one thick coat. The final pass over the window frame locks in the protective, mirror-like finish. Black paint is notoriously unforgiving. It amplifies every microscopic flaw in the preparation. Achieving this level of optical clarity proves the hours spent sanding were worth it. The cured clear coat provides a resilient barrier against ultraviolet degradation, ensuring the depth of the reflection will last for years. With the body panels curing, attention returns to the naked chassis. Stripping the engine bay clears the path for heavy structural repairs. Remaining electrical looms are carefully pulled back so the intense heat of oxy-acetylene welding won't melt the brittle copper wiring during floor pan reconstruction. Clearing jagged debris from the rear deck protects the mechanic's hands during future metalwork. A completely sterile environment prevents loose dirt from contaminating the critical structural welds that lie ahead. The bare skeleton is entirely undrivable, requiring a flatbed winch for transport. Moving the chassis to a dedicated fabrication shop provides the heavy-duty lifting equipment necessary for undercarriage restoration. The frame's geometry will be measured and squared before the new sheet metal patches are hammered in. Days later, the structural integrity is restored. Sanding down the new welds blends the repaired sections smoothly into the original chassis steel. Using high-torque tools locks down the suspension points, ensuring the rigid framework can once again handle the dynamic stresses of the road safely. A vehicle is only as reliable as its drivetrain. Breaking the seal on the transmission housing reveals decades of neglected sludge. The old fluid has oxidized into a dark paste, losing all its protective viscosity, leaving the hardened steel gear faces vulnerable to intense friction. Cleanliness is paramount during the gearbox rebuild. A single grain of sand can destroy a high-speed roller bearing under load. Seating the fresh bearing perfectly true on the main shaft guarantees smooth power delivery. Impact drivers are then used to compress the robust clutch packs, removing any excess play that might cause dangerous slipping between gears. Every synchronizer ring and helical gear is bathed in fresh lubricant before the casing halves are mated. Dry starting a newly assembled transmission would score the soft brass components instantly. The mechanic carefully inspects the rotational alignment of the input shafts to confirm there is no binding. A smooth, quiet engagement by hand means the tolerances are correct. This meticulous verification prevents catastrophic mechanical lockup at highway speeds. Hammering the top cover into its final seating secures the internal hydraulic pathways. The red enamel finish locks out corrosion. The pieces of the puzzle finally converge. Lifting the hood of the freshly painted shell marks the transition from repair to resurrection. The empty bay, now structurally sound and coated in deep black, waits to receive the overhauled drivetrain. Mating the heavy transmission back into the narrow chassis is an operation demanding extreme patience, as a swinging iron block can easily scratch the flawless new bodywork. Mounts and cross members are aligned by sight and feel, securing the massive rotating assembly to the car's rigid frame. Every bolt tightened brings this forgotten machine one step closer to moving under its own power. The electrical harnesses, once a brittle mess, are reconnected to bridge the gap between the mechanical heart and the driver's controls. It is a slow, methodical reunion of parts. What was a scrap pile is a working machine again, revived, not factory perfect, and honest about it. Every unseen weld and perfectly toleranced gear is what its reliability now rests on. Some roads are worth driving again,